Hello and welcome to Asterix and the Chieftan Shield. I'm Noodle and that is Scummer, and we are your hosts for our most recent Asterix book this week. This one released in late 2019, so not quite pandemic times, but close enough. It makes very little difference in most of our memories. So this one should be interesting. We, I think, have both not made the mistake of last week and read it ahead this week. So, Scummer, what did you think?
Okay, well, first of all, it's the Chieftain's daughter, not the Chieftain. We've already done the Chieftain's Shield.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
It's always me, isn't it?
But in a way, that's kind of probably a little sign that this isn't the most memorable book in the series. It's meh. I think this is what we settled on. Is meh.
We settled on meh.
It's I think the thing that I feel like the series is starting to get a little stale now. I mean, that's not to say that there isn't some good points in this, but there's also, some of the jokes are getting a little, and I suppose we just sort of just say, I'm afraid just be prepared for some of the imagery. I don't think we want to go too far into it because we'll sound like a broken record if we keep going into all these issues with it. But just be prepared.
Just be prepared, but it's more of the same. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Which we've already established at this point with these new writers and artists. But yeah, if you are out there, hello, welcome. I know we've got a couple of lurkers and I see Ring in the chat as well. Hello to you all. Glad to have you. And if you are watching in the future, thank you very much for your time and for joining us. I hope you enjoy. With that, I think we're going to crack straight on today. Because it's a bit, it is what it is. So let's see how it goes. So nice little village scene here, and unusual for Asterix. Doesn't start with much of a splash page, but also dives straight into the action, which is unusual. Normally we get at least a page or so of kind of knocking about the village first. So night is about to fall over the village when three mysterious horsemen approach the chief's hut. And we've already got Geriatrix there. This is an important meeting. And immediately we have exposition dump, I think, is here. Geriatrix recognizes two of the horsemen as people who fought alongside Vercingetorix. Book breaks its own continuity.
Totally. I mean, there seems to be this is going to be a little recurring thing throughout this, isn't there? This thing of nobody says Vercingetorix's name out loud since his defeat. It's a bit almost like the Harry Potter kind of he who shall not be named Rings channel punching bag. Except
for the fact that actually was one of the few bits of logic in that book because they were afraid of saying that name. As opposed to this one where it appears to insinuate that they're ashamed.
It's just really weird because in these books, it's always like it's always been made a big deal of the fact that certain people fought alongside Vercingetorix against Caesar, whether at Jagovia or Alesia. So, and it certainly doesn't for the fact that we just talked about this before we went live. Actually, that Vercingetorix is a big sort of cultural national hero in France. Napoleon put up a whole bunch of statues of Vercingetorix, and there's a big one. There's a big one. Is it near Alesia or Jagovia? It's quite a famous one. It's
I don't see where they're going with this. And it's a bit odd, but let's roll with it.
I mean, I don't know if we want to take a minute or two. I know we've probably gone through this before, but in case we got like people who are new to what we do, if we just take a minute or two to explain who Vercingetorix was actually.
So, I mean, the TLDR of Vercingetorix is he predated. I think I may be getting my timelines mixed up. He predated Boudica, but essentially the French answer to Boudica united the tribes against the Romans and gave them hell, at least initially, until it was eventually subdued. Vercingetorix was actually captured and then executed in Rome as a prisoner of war. And it was a whole big thing. There are other stories out there. And there's a great pair of books by Mary Geary, I think her name is, called Getorix, about a fictional son of Vercingetorix who is taken to Rome with him when he's captured, and it follows his adventures because he accidentally signals to a Roman patrician's son for mercy and ends up being bought as a slave instead of executed, which is quite a compelling story, completely fictional, of course, but quite a compelling story, and very well researched with regards to the background of what ancient Rome was actually like. So well worth having a look at.
Unlike this one, where we're dealing with the fictional daughter of Vercingetorix, which probably not said we're not getting Asterix, not exactly great historical novels. They got their uses, I think, for teaching. They got their uses for teaching little things in history, but
this is not one of them.
This isn't one of them.
Also, as well, the weird, funny accents here. In this book, they seem to have. This is something that apparently appears in the French originals, where the French is written in various accents to denote where they're from in and around France. It's never really appeared in the English versions before, until this one. And I don't know who made that decision, but they need to unmake it for the next one, if there is a next one. It doesn't fly well at all. And frankly, the way some of the accents are written, it reads either like classist snobbery or, possibly taking the mickey out of people with lisps and stuff, which, again, not appropriate in 2019.
They make this little joke. Yeah.
I mean, it's very a low, isn't it?
It is. You're always waiting for them to come and say good morning.
Yeah. And the thing is, a low is funny because it existed within its context of a time and where it was based. And it was taking the mickey out of the British, which, fair, very easy to take the mickey out of. This kind of doesn't feel like that. It doesn't have the same. Plus, it's not 30 years old, and you can't get away with 40 years old, 50 years old now. Bloody hell, the 70s were a long time ago, weren't they?
Well, it's the 80s are low, so it's
80s, it's like the 80s, isn't it? So you can kind of get away with saying that was the sense of humour at the time. You can't say that in 2019.
Yeah.
Yes, and for let's just take all of that what I've just said as read, because I will say this only once.
Listen very carefully. I should say this only once.
But yeah, that's we have a nostalgia for that kind of comedy. Yeah, because it fit the time it was in. This does not fit the time it's in. Is my opinion?
No, it doesn't. There's a little pun there of them. What the RAF pun. Which is meh. It's a meh pun to me.
It's pretty meh because it doesn't track more than at surface level of the letters. If they'd have done something about the French resistance there, I think it might have tracked a bit better.
The only thing I see him doing is like the it's like the peace or victory symbol. Like it's a bit of the church, a bit like the Churchill type thing that I see there. But
that's what I think of Churchill.
Yeah. That's a whole tangent we better not go down.
Yes, let's not.
We could be here a while.
Yeah, we've got media musings later, so yeah. Cool. So now we've got Adrenaline, Vercingetorix's only daughter. And to be fair, when I say Vercingetorix, I pronounce it with that lisp sometimes. That wasn't deliberate on my part. And she's quite, and even from the first panel she's shown, she's a
teenage girl.
She's a teenage girl, but
she's a teenage girl.
I just want to point out as well, if you are the daughter of a long defeated chieftain, you ain't walking around in gold belts. That ain't the kind of clothes you're wearing, sweetheart.
It's almost like they've made her a little. It's a bit weird what they've done with her. It's almost like they've made her a lot like a little bit sort of goth emo type.
She's kind of. She's got a bit of. Yeah, you can kind of see the. I don't want to say punk because she's a lot of things, but she ain't punk. But you can see that where the clothing style's based on. It's very sort of Avril Lavigne, isn't it?
It's sort of like they've taken a few different little tropes from teenage pop culture and tried to mesh them, but it doesn't really drive anything home.
Yeah, I think this is the problem. I think they've tried to appeal to a younger generation with it, and they've just come off as taking the mickey out of that generation, which we will see. Because a lot of it is... This book's very clearly geared towards people born after about 1998, which you can tell in some of the puns and stuff that we'll get to. But do you know what it is? It's like the wacky vicar or the teacher who's trying to be cool. That's what is going on with it. It just misses the mark. All of us who were young enough to remember being kids know not to try to be cool around the kids because you can't be cool to kids.
For reference, see Graham Norton's character in Father Ted.
Yeah.
Father Noel, basically.
Yeah, he's that kind of look, isn't it? I appear to have a bit of an echo. Sorry if that's bothering anyone.
I'm not hearing anything, but
okay. So you didn't know Vercingetorix had a daughter? That's because you didn't, dude. No one but us knows. Okay. No one would ever call Vercingetorix Generalissimo.
That's
a deliberate. Pay attention to that because that's kind of not accidental, but it should have been really obvious. So he entrusted the child to them before surrendering at Alesia, gave her his talk on a Gaulish neckwear, saying she must always resist conquest in his name and stay free. And they broke through the line with her, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And we get that little thing. We've seen this panel a number of times in the book of Vercingetorix laying his arms at Caesar's feet, and the way they do that of this is a panel almost in the very first book they depict this.
Yeah,
he lays his arms at his feet, but he drops them on Caesar's feet.
So even as he's defeated, he's going to be he's going to get one last digging.
Yeah.
Which is fair. And she's just not impressed. She's a typical teenager. You can almost imagine her there on Twitter, can't you?
Yeah.
She's got that look about her, like she's too busy on Twitter. So here we go. There was a traitor in the midst. And this is what I mean by trying to appeal to a specific generation. Binge watch flicks.
Yeah, I quite like it, but yeah.
I can see what it's trying to do. I can also see that it's filled. The thing about the puns that I like about the Asterix books is the puns mean more than just pun. Usually they're relevant to the character in some way. Like you can almost see what happened there. They probably went, "Oh, we want to call him Netflix, but we're not going to be able to get away with that because it's a business name."
Well, yeah, it's like shall we say, with a lot of the times in the past, like I said, that said they are somewhat relevant to the character, maybe about the character's personality. Now, if you remember Asterix in the Banquet, we had so say a couple of the sort of more treacherous Gauls who sort of collaborated with the Romans. You had Unpatriotics and Uptotrix.
Yeah.
So it sort of described their nature in a way.
Even in the recurring characters, we get Geriatrix, the old man, Unhygienics, the fishmonger, Fully Automatics, the engineer or mechanic, which is what is, he's the blacksmith, but he would have been the village engineer and mechanic as well.
Cacophonics even, or I believe Malacoustics, I believe he's called in some of the other languages.
Yeah. Even Asterix, the star of the books.
Yeah.
These are a bit,
and Obelix, what does Obelix do for a living?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think not now it's just, I suppose it's more they're just coming up with what's a good pun to get in here, that's culturally relevant.
They're trying too hard to appeal to the audience and not hard enough to tell the story, I think. It's a bit too not nudge wink wink for me, because that's one thing these books always did really well. They winked at the audience, but they did it in such a way that you felt like you were actually being brought into something rather than just winking, which could be anything.
I think it's a difference between like winking to the audience and just shouting straight at the audience is kind of what they're doing here a bit. And
this one is this comment that they make. Okay, so the Romans want to kidnap her to Romanize her, and it was common practice to forcibly Romanize some hostages. That's a very interesting way of putting it.
Not entirely untrue, but not
by far the whole story, which we won't go entirely into, but it was more Rome would Romanize as it spread. It would Romanize the area. If they took war hostages, the closest you were going to get to Romanization was enslaved and kept in a Roman household. They weren't. This to me is gross because it hints at something that's been done historically, but not by the Romans. It hints at children, and it's been done by various fascist states. The obvious one being obvious, who fit the mold of what they called their, particular preference of what they wanted their children to look like, taken away from their families and raised by patriotic families or loyal families, which happened. And it's something that happened in my family, so I know about this.
Not just in, obviously, like
it happens to indigenous peoples. It happens to.
That's where I was.
To an extent, you can say it's happened to the African American diaspora in America.
My immediate thought was Australia.
Yeah, Australia, America's done it. Basically forcing indigenous peoples to forget their own languages, forget their own ways, and adhere to the white oppressive culture. As Ring Pussy, you're not allowed to side-eye America. You're in America. No, you are. This is valid. It actually makes me happy to see Americans who look at their own history and go, the fuck. I think everyone should look at their own history sometimes and just go, the fuck.
Yes, especially the British.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
Yes, but every country has its dark spots of history, some darker and broader than others, but it's good to know what you're going to be apologizing for if you ever become a politician.
It's like Rob Newman sort of said once when he was doing a bit of a joke about it was something to do with like the First World War. He says the British got involved to defend plucky Belgian neutrality. The Belgians couldn't do it because they were too busy defending plucky Congolese neutrality. Sort of like wink, wink. Yeah.
The Americans got involved in Vietnam to protect French interests. The French got involved in Vietnam to protect, there's always an imperial backstory to anyone who claims to be neutral or anyone who claims to be, protecting someone else's interests. There's always something else going on. So we've got bring the girl. We'll make a proper Roman of her.
Yeah.
And the traitor's been tracking them all this time, so they've had to keep the girl hidden. Well, clearly you've not kept her that well hidden if he's managed to track you for, 15 years?
Yeah,
the age she looks, maybe 13 at a push.
This is what I can't get. I see they definitely get the timelines very screwed up on these books, because most of these books are set in around 50 BC. It seems to be like the benchmark thing, right? Yeah. And they talk about like the Battle of Elysia as if it happened with some sort of ancient something that happened in ancient history. It probably, I think it happened in something like 52 BC.
So it was 2 years ago.
So yeah, it's not like it's sort of like when it's talked about, it's kind of like the during the war,
Yeah, during the war, it was in 52 BC.
Yeah.
And the first book was supposedly in 48 BC.
Yeah.
So it's not. Yeah.
I mean, it's even.
They should still be rebuilding and on the run from Caesar.
Yeah.
At this point.
I mean, I know there's some sort of debate about when exactly Vercingetorix was executed. We've had I've had this one thing that says 49 BC, and then there's another one that says 46 BC in one of Caesar's triumphs, which I think is the more commonly accepted one.
I mean, he was viewed. There is record that he was seen at one of Caesar's triumphs in 46 BC.
Yeah.
But then there's a plaque. I can't remember where it is. That says he was beheaded in 49 BC. So,
point being, Vercingetorix is probably still alive at the time of this story. So that's a nitpicking little thing, to be honest, on my part, because
never claimed to be history books. But
let's be honest, any pretty much every historical movie tends to get timelines completely fucked up. And I know why they do it, because sometimes you're trying to get an awful lot of sort of story. So something that happened over the space of 2 or 3 years is packed into like a weekend. A weekend or 2 or 3 months or whatever for purposes of a movie. I get that, but
because let's be honest, if war films showed all the waiting around that soldiers did, they'd be 10 hours long, and they only no one would watch them because they're just boring. So I get it, but a basic write it down on a scrap of paper, 52, 48, 46, 49. It's and I just
and I see this is a bit when you get back here when they're leaving here with vital statistics now, and I mean, she's looking really put out by this as it is anyway. Good girl, adrenaline. Your daddies will be back, as if they're her daddies.
Yeah, and her
Yeah,
father
it's
at
like,
best has been dead 2 years.
yeah,
And that's if he went down, if he was killed immediately after the battle. And
So
she's clearly not, it's not like she's a toddler and she doesn't know any different. She's clearly a young teenager, 13 to 15, I would put her at. That's what she's in. I do love how the toilet's obviously designed to look like headphones, though. That's quite funny.
yeah,
And this comment of the way she looks at them throughout there, you know, she clearly dislikes them. And here, even, you know, get your liars out, why don't you?
yeah,
So, you know, which the world's smallest file in there. And here, be careful. Her response is to run. She's a bolter. Well, mate, if I got stuck with you two looking after me at that age, I'd probably try and run as well.
yeah.
Oh, here we go. And this is quite clearly some sort of code from the battle. Strong as an oryx, discreet as a mole. I can see why, because it's relevant to the plot that they have different accents, because there's a joke in there. But it's not even worth mentioning. It's just poor. So here we go, and this is anyone who's ever met a teenager knows that you don't try and enforce family roles on them, like anti-impedimenta. Or anti-impedimenta, even.
Just don't do it. It's just not.
Just don't try and force a relationship with anyone. They almost feel like they're getting away with it because she's a kid and she hasn't got a choice in the matter. And as someone who's had, you know, who's been in that situation as a kid where family members appeared out of the blue and you will call that person auntie or uncle, just don't do it. I don't know them. They were there for me. Why the hell am I showing them any respect now? That's the attitude of teenagers, and I think they're right.
Let's put it this way. I've got a niece and nephew that I've only sort of got to know a bit over the last year or two. I wouldn't insist on them calling me uncle. I made one joke once with my niece that because she was just beside. Let's just say I won't go into too deep, but she was trying something on with her mother, like to get away with something, and I just said, milking the privilege of Uncle Jeff visiting here, are we? Like, you know, so yeah. That's about the only time I sort of have ever made that reference, really. But
yeah, let's see if Mum's willing to cause a scene in front of her brother, basically.
Yeah, that was abusing the privilege sort of thing. Yeah. That was.
So yeah, it's one of those things where I just leave teenagers alone. They're nearly going to be adults, and if you treat them like kids, you've got no right to be annoyed when they act like them. I'm still young enough that I'm still on the side of teenagers within reason. Within reason.
I did for about 3 or 4 years. I did volunteer, sort of part-time youth work as well. So learned sort of some things firsthand the hard way, and to be honest, what you're taught in the book, you're taught a lot of the time in the book about how to deal with the, except for obviously all the legal things you got to be, but a lot of the way you're taught to interact doesn't work in reality.
No, it doesn't. Because I'm sorry, kids and teenagers know when you're patronising them. Just be straight with them, and they'll be straight with you.
Well, I mean, the classic one I always get is like there was 2 male youth leaders in this group, me and my friend Steve, and let's just say any time the teenage lads were trying something on, we always fucking caught them.
Been there, done that.
And it eventually, you know, it's like eventually they turn around and ask us, how the hell do you always know we're doing something we shouldn't be doing? Like, it's just, so like, I was like, because like we were little gits at your age as well, like, you know, not quite what wording we used, but pretty much.
I can just imagine the wording you used.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here we go. And this is again impedimenta just patronising her. She clearly is not happy.
Yeah.
So she's been now left with Asterix and Obelix, and remember, be careful. This as well. She's not a horse.
Yeah.
They're calling her a bolter. She's not a horse. No wonder this poor girl. I swear, like she's not much of a character, but no wonder she behaves the way she does. So meanwhile, in the camp, the weirdest, some dude rides a horse into a tent, and you know whose daughter is Heidi. Oh, I've just realised what. You're right. It is a Harry Potter reference.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right. It's a reference to Cursed Child. I've just twigged. So yeah, Cursed Child makes a thing about a previously unknown daughter of the Dark Lord, which, yeah.
You know Harry Potter better than I do, but I just assumed that's where they were going with it.
The thing is that story got absolutely slammed by the fan base. So why they felt the need to copy it, I've no idea. So yeah, and then on we go. And here we go. He's off, and he doesn't know whose daughter is basically the. And this is the thing. The whole joke takes a page and a half for whose daughter, and it's just like really.
But and then it's the whole, and the whole thing is be careful. She's a bolter keeps coming up as well.
Yeah, and it's just because you repeat it doesn't make it funny. She's gone to market with impedimenta, and don't take your eyes off her.
See, you see what, and you see here what I was on about. You know, she's taking her. You know, she's like, nah, girls' clothes are rubbish. I'd rather dress like a goth. So you see what they're going for here.
Yeah.
Even though she's not really, she doesn't really look like a goth. It's sort of semi-goth, but it's like there's a whole mishmash of kind of teenage subcultures and countercultures that they're trying to bring in here.
Very generic mid-2000s teenager, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
like that Once Upon a Time, you know. Minus the sword, because I don't think that was allowed at my sixth form, but you know. It's just a bit generic, that's all. And impedimenta again with the patronising. And this is just everyone. As a teenager, this has got to be a nightmare for her, isn't it?
Everyone.
Like, you've got to assume she's still grieving as well, because
yeah.
And,
I mean, it's do that. I mean, it's like poor girl stigmatized here totally by them. Well, she's a sulky little. I mean, look at it.
Just everyone
and bad time. They're all talk, no action.
Yeah, and they're all talking about her, but you don't see them doing anything either.
Yeah. Be fair, the two that don't seem to be is Asterix and Obelix. They're just going to be watching all this, and so that they're just, I mean, to be fair, at the moment they're just kind of standing back and watching from a distance. I mean, it still must be annoying to her, but at the moment they're not getting to, they're not crossing any boundaries. That'll change, as we go on, I'm certain.
Yeah. And then you see here the first person to actually talk to her like she's a human being, and she immediately makes friends with the fishmonger's son.
Yeah.
And his little brother. Who apparently has a German accent now, or like a cartoon German accent.
Yeah.
Okay. And the blacksmith's son is selfie pics. Okay.
Okay.
At least crab sticks and Blinix make some
Some
sense.
sense. Selfie pics makes zero.
Yeah, especially for the blacksmith's son. So yeah, they're studying Conde, but they're on work placement with their parents, which explains why they've never been seen in these books before.
Yeah. Okay, work experience joke.
Yeah.
That's only like 20 years out of date, isn't it?
Yeah. Getting work experience with anyone but your parents is bloody impossible.
Mm.
Yeah, baseball cap joke. Like, really?
Yeah, this is it's wearing the helmet. So of course you got the two fathers getting ready to have a punch up.
Yeah, any
As
excuse,
they
and now
always
he's
do.
using the sons as an excuse.
Yeah.
Obelix wants to deliver a mania. And Asterix nuts, stay neutral. Yeah, so and then they're going to the quarry later on in the day.
Yeah, that's just where they go to hang out.
Yeah. The character Back to Basics, who we again have never heard of before, seems to like it.
Yeah. Something these books could probably benefit from doing, actually. Get back to basics of what made this series good to begin with.
Yeah. Because, like we said, it's all a bit meh. That's why I'm just kind of reading it, because there's not even anything that I can deep dive into the history of for you.
No, I mean we've done what we've done on like Vercingetorix. Really, that's about it. And that's something I know we've covered before, but
yeah. So Centurion's going to retire on the 15th of May, and that means don't go provoking Alicia 2 in his last month. So heads down, mouth shut, because he wants a quiet retirement. Minor military joke. I don't know, like, don't start a war when I'm due to retire. The only thing with, that again, the Romans served for the length of a battle or for the length of a war. So yeah, he doesn't want his retirement cancelling. Fair dues. Troops have been informed, and she's the chief is freaking out, keeps thinking she's done a runner.
Done a runner. She's at the quarry with the other youngsters. Asterix and Obelix are keeping an eye on, and they're doing what they've been. I mean, at the moment they're doing what they've been told to do.
Yeah, we've all done it, hung around at scrapyards or wherever as teenagers when there was nothing to do. Mildly amusing that Obelix is more worried about the menhirs than the kids in a place like that.
And they're wondering whether she's planning on running away. So it tells Obelix to go and discreetly mingle with them and find out. Why me? He says, you're more like a teenager than me.
That's, again, it's one of those. It's a huff and move on joke. Yeah. It's fine. They work here, and the way they talk, this way of teenagers talking was out of date when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Your talk's well cool. What's that, like late 90s?
I think that was starting to go out in my time. Some of that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, like some of those who thought they were a bit, tough guys still used it in my time.
I tell you the one that I used to even hate it when I was I used to even hate it when I was a teenager, was the sorted. I used to fucking hate that even then. But that was like it's like
and like
I grew up in the era of fucking rave music. What can I say?
Yeah. He also wants to have me like kidnapped and that's not even how a normal teenager would speak, even when like was the word of the day. which it was when I was a teenager. It feels like this was written by someone trying to appeal to teenagers now, who was a teenager 20 years ago. And hasn't kept up, which is fair. No one keeps up, but it just misses the mark.
This is why, like, so, you know, I mean, generally it's better when they do something that are like, should we say, really, actually look at the way some teenagers talk and whatever. I mean, if anyone remembers the British comedian Catherine Tate, with her, you know, her character Lauren, you know, the "Am I bothered" kind of thing.
No, these three panels here read like Yorkshire. Read like the Yorkshire kids. My parents want me to be a fishmonger like them, and mine want me to be a blacksmith, so don't even. No one said so don't even since 2003 at least. No one has said that. I promise you, no one has said that. They weren't saying it when I was a teenager in like the late 2000s.
They have a bit of a moan about the potion here now, I believe.
Yeah, and again, this is just really irritating. You don't know what the old man puts in the potion, so you know that could be what made you obese. And it's like, and you know the boars are being hunted, so they'll be gone soon. It's almost taking the mickey out of social justice ideas, isn't it, about vegetarianism and it's trying to play it straight, but it is quite clearly taking the mickey, because really
they're actually quite mean. They're quite mean to Obelix here. So he actually, I mean, you know, he can't take it. They've been mean to him.
Yeah, I think this is the most telling line in the whole book, and it's the only one that really even broke through the veneer of boredom for me. Wherever I go, Alicia breaks out all over again. I can't take it anymore. And finally, this girl says something that makes her human, and no one acknowledges it.
I know.
And it's just, that could have been an incredible moment to really show and deep dive into what grief looks like at a young age.
And it's the weird thing is here. It's one thing about the panel here. You know, they're walking off, and this goes to, you know, and Obelix is upset. Why do they have to draw dogmatics rolling around and laughing then? And then
I don't think he's laughing. I think he's fallen over.
All right. I don't know what's quite happening, because he's howling in the next sort of panel. It's a bit weird.
Yeah, like he's howling along with Obelix crying.
Yeah.
And it's just,
I'll just say, we don't like seeing dogmatics howling. We don't like seeing doggy upset.
It's sad. No, leave the doggy alone. And this one, and she's not wearing girls' tunics. They're lame, and they don't go with her talk. I mean, fair. Like, why are they using?
There's not even a black one with studs.
Yeah, you can see they're trying, but they just don't understand. They don't get her at all. They're trying to fit her to their idea of what she should be, rather than letting her just be herself.
But even like the black one with studs, they're thinking. So they're obviously thinking that's definitely a sign of them trying to think that they're being cool, like, you know, like, oh, she's obviously into like this goth clothing, you know.
Yeah, so they're going to try, but they're not really getting very far, are they?
Yeah, it's kind of, but they don't really get it, you know.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you something now. These parents would not know the difference between goth clothing and like sort of just generic sort of metal type clothing. And
let's be honest, I think because they're the generation who actually were the originals, my parents' generation was, but I think most generations, if you put goth, emo, punk and metal next to each other, probably rock as well, maybe even biker next to each other as aesthetics, most people couldn't tell you what the differences are.
No.
which is really annoying, actually.
Yeah, and there's just a whole difference between the subcultures, you know. I mean, you see how you see how pissed off a goth will get if you call them an emo, you know.
Having been part of both of those subcultures at some point, yeah, absolutely, they're totally different. Don't at me, just don't at. In fact,
the only thing that I think ever gets that, the only thing that even gets it halfway right is the goth kids in South Park.
Yeah, kind
they're
of.
the only, they halfway, but like the whole thing, like when all the other kids say, "Hey, emo kids, you want to see what's going on outside?"
No.
They just call us emos. You
Yeah,
know? That's
that's the drill, isn't it? Which is as close as it gets. Goths and emos will get very offended if you mix them up.
Yeah.
And rightly so, because they are two totally separate things. So these two kids, again, she's made friends with people who just talk to her like she's normal. And Gets Fix has got a point, you know, just talk to her, don't try and force it. But no one's listening to him because when do they ever in these books? And he's got his chores to do. He's got to do the muscles.
And like the whole thing that says Vercingetorix really quietly, whenever other words being shouted, it's
and then this Vercingetorix, Unhygienic is going to hit his son with a fish, and Asterix jumping in, and I think this is quite horrible for me because I've seen it happen in real life and it's accurate to how parents sometimes behave.
Yeah.
And no, hitting your children does not make them behave themselves. It just makes them sneaky. Go on, ask me how I know. A few fish puns in there as well. Unhygienics and
Fully Automatics again.
At it again.
They don't set. I don't think they set very good role models for their sons at all, do they? The way they carry
really
on.
Don't. But yeah, the son's taken advantage of that and just wandered off. Which
is kind of cool to see that the two sons get along with each other.
Yeah, at the very least, he puts up with having his little brother on his coattails, doesn't he?
Yeah, and well, the fact that Fully Automatics' son and Unhygienic son seem to be for the most part pretty cool with one another as well is like, you know, when their fathers are looking for any excuse, you know, always seem to end up in punch-ups with one another.
Yeah, so it's nice to see that, you know, the next generation are actually
a little bit better. Yeah.
So yeah, that's they're doing better. And you know, she's all upset that she causes fights, and everywhere she goes. And this all her other two dads can think about is fighting and reconquering Gaul with her. So basically, she's lived a life where no one's actually taken her for her and asked her what she wants to do, which is the entire point of a father giving her the damn thing was live your own life and make your own rules. But they've tried to force her into a role she clearly doesn't want anything to do with. Which is quite irritating because I think you said before we went live as well that they made a big deal about the protagonist of this book being female. But what's the point in her being female when she's a MacGuffin?
Yeah,
you know,
the authors made a very big deal out of this. And to be honest, you know, you really a lot of the time, to be honest, when I saw that and then you look at the book, you kind of think, are they just making a big deal of this bloody virtue signal or something? Because it's not.
Yeah, well, it's about the time Me Too was
Yeah.
It's still going on, wasn't it?
I mean, to be fair, though, I mean, but then maybe considering what we've gone through over the past sort of
Maybe they think
few
this is progressive.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe, I mean, probably in fact it probably is progressive in comparison to some of the stuff that's been in these books recently.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare it to Secret Weapon, it's
Yeah,
leaps and bounds ahead.
yeah.
Um,
And even to the last one we did with the chariot race and that awful
Yeah.
depiction of the Williams sisters, you know.
Yeah. And this is what she wants to do. She wants to take children with no parents, take them to a faraway island beyond the known world where the Romans won't find her. So she wants to live her own life and she wants to do her own thing. And she just wants to get away from it all. And you can't really blame her that.
I think Ring makes a good point in the chat, actually.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Asterix and Cleopatra did it better. Yeah. And this Thule is kind of a historical thing. It's referenced. There's some historians are still arguing about what it might be. It might have been the Shetland Islands. It might have been northern Scotland. It very far north. Eventually, it became, in the same way we sort of talk about in Britain. It's all the way to Timbuktu, all the way to Thule. It's that kind of. That's the what it has. It's so far away. It's not even on my radar. That's what Thule kind of became a shorthand word for. So.
Yeah, it's
and there's a little bit of a Peter Pan thing going on here of, take the children and let's all run away together kind of thing. And then but they can't because they have, obligations at home. So she's like, cool, just help me get out of the village. And yeah, okay, pirates
they're not
alert.
Yeah, that's what now pirates. I would just say the pirates are going to feature quite heavily in this book.
Yeah.
So
though to be fair,
warnings
some of the
now.
best jokes in this book, poor though they are done
From the
with the
pirates.
Yeah. So we've got the wind dropped again, so the boat has stopped. And they're all drunk on the ship. And some of the songs are quite good. You've got Carmen Phoenician.
Yeah, that's quite funny. Yeah. Winds come and go. They come and go. Yeah.
Anyone who's ever been drunk knows that song is
Let's be honest, that song only get that. To be honest, you have to be drunk to start singing that song. I'm sorry.
You kind of do, yeah. And then I like this one. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amphora. That's a great joke. That's a brilliant joke. I like that because it actually goes with the historical thing of what an amphora is. It was a wine. It meets the scansion of the track that it's ripping off, and it's relevant. So more of this, please. You can tell I'm not very good at explaining jokes, but not really supposed to. You don't have to explain that joke because it's actually funny.
And the captain's obviously like he's a bit pissed off with the whole thing. I like to keep a tight ship.
Yeah. So night's fallen, and Back to Basics is standing an unusual kind of guard facing towards the village. Hypervigilant thanks to the druid's potion. It never granted hypervigilance. What? So they're just breaking their own canon at this point.
Yeah. I mean, we it's long established that it gives them superhuman like strength and speed, but
there's nothing about keeping them awake because they take naps at least once a book.
I mean, it's like It's I don't, you know, is it supposed to be fucking Red Bull or something as well now?
Yeah. Red Bull gives you wings.
Yeah.
You know,
Red
and
Bull
they're
gives you
talking,
diabetes.
yeah, that too, and heart disease and heart attacks.
Says me who's drinking Coca-Cola right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but you know, it just so they talk the old soldier basically into giving them a drink. You know, because I remember being young, and when I were a lad, you know, during the war. Again, she's done a runner now because he got distracted. And they're all now gathered around, passing the book, blaming each other, trying to, you know, Obelix pulling his trousers up, which just is unnecessary. They've all been caught on the hop, essentially.
Yeah.
Um,
So split them. So
split up and go searching. Okay. Oops, did I skip 2 pages there? Yeah. So chaos as they go searching. The tracker said it would be tonight.
So you got a Roman patrol there.
Yeah. And she's on the run, and she's been hit with an arrow that just so happens to catch her in such a way that it doesn't do any damage to her, but keeps her stuck to the tree.
So it's gone through the necklace thing between, you know.
Yeah, it's caught her.
Gone through the
talk. This is creepy. This is creepy and gross, and I don't know how they got away with it. There's no need for that. It's very, yeah, it's just gross. I like that she fights back and gives as good as she gets. And she's not afraid, but she shouldn't have to be either. And here we go. Now we have geriatrics calling out binge watch flicks. And apparently he's a traitor because he didn't get a pat on the back from Vercingetorix. Like, really?
Really?
And you think the Romans are going to be any better? It's just... generals are always going to have their favourites.
It would have been. It would have just been better. It would have just been better for him to be like, "Yeah, Romans give me gold."
Yeah.
Just say that. That would have been better.
Yeah.
Just say, if he just said, if they just sort of said, "I've done it for the money."
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying you have to make a big point. You don't have to make a big point about why this guy's turned traitor, but at least give it a somewhat logical, realistic reason.
Like this, he could have literally just said there instead, the Romans pay well. And it would have probably hit better than that, because at least then, you know he's a prick.
Yeah.
Whereas this is almost like it's trying to make him sympathetic and failing, but not.
But then it's doing the next page. It's sort of saying like the world's changed, and you're back. But indomitable people don't seem to understand change means change. I mean, okay.
He's just bitter, isn't he? He's very bitter.
But if they'd maybe just gone with that to begin with, hey, the Romans are the future, and I see that.
There was no need for the whole, yeah.
I mean, they could have even done a way more historical thing here of tribes that actually, you know, were willing to work and collaborate with Romans.
Yeah.
God, you know, it would have been actually, they could have done something that was quite historically accurate.
Yeah. So they're chasing him off now, and they're still looking for the girl. The soldiers hiding behind their shields when Asterix and Obelix come along. This is mildly amusing insofar as it's a callback to normally they don't really have a conversation.
I don't know. It's another little. I am nitpicking here. We're saying by Cernunnos, the horned god, she got away. Why did you have to make the point that Cernunnos is the horned god?
That's not how you would even invoke a deity anyway.
Yeah.
Normally, if they'd have put Canunus and they'd have put an asterisk and a little yellow box here, I wouldn't argue it.
That's kind of what I think they should have done. That's a nitpicky little thing. I know that's me nitpicking, but
I feel like this book deserves nitpicking because it's just so meh. If you don't nitpick, you're gonna fall asleep.
Yeah.
You know, and here we go. The boys are looking dangerous, says Asterix, after they've beaten up the Romans, who, yeah. And they've even skipped the fight with the Romans, which is usually half of what these books are. They're just missing the mark. And then here we've got, even in the dark, the character is drawn just, ugh.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
showing
getting.
it. I'm showing
showing
it because
it.
at this point, right, I'm sick of it and it doesn't deserve to be hidden behind a veil. And quite frankly, I'm just, if we don't call this shit out and drag it into the light, it's going to carry on.
Yeah.
But this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And it's just, oh.
It's beyond fucking tiresome now. It really is.
It is.
And I'm not saying get rid of the character, but just
draw him like he's not a fucking.
Draw him like he's a fucking human being, not.
I'll finish the sentence for you. Draw him like he's a human being and not a cartoon gorilla.
Yeah.
You know, 2019, you didn't really have any excuse. And give him more lines than random gurning, please.
This is one of the, and this is one of the few things. Well, I just say this because I will have to just quickly take a break and get painkillers in a sec. But
also, just to point out, this is the first time his name's been mentioned in any of the books. And we're on book number 37 or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we found out a few weeks ago because we were looking through the characters, didn't we? His name was Baba, but it was just sort of known as the Look. But it's one of my big bugbears is in perhaps only one of these books that I can remember. It's one of the black characters really played a central role, which was to be the Mansions of the Gods, and even then he was still the leader of the slaves.
Yeah,
it's like. This pirate's the only black character in the entire series that's not a slave that I can think of.
Yeah, and he's basically the comic relief character.
Yeah, I mean, I know. Yes, the pirates themselves are comic relief, but he's kind of the comic relief within the comic relief, you know?
Yeah, he's there to make the pirates look vaguely intelligent compared to him.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to just step out for a minute or so because I just need to get some painkillers. So.
Yeah, no worries. So Adrenaline finds them. They're going back to the ship and she's wanting to follow. And the kids have finally cracked and told Asterix and Obelix where they are and to send out a signal to the fleet. So they've done that. And of course... here we go, Roman fleet. And this joke here of Kid telling, accidentally calling the leader of the ship Dad. And don't do that. The tracker's signaling. And you get the impression that this kid is maybe not his, given the way he's writing, is possibly of German descent, I think is what's supposed to be the reference here. So off they go. They set the rhythm. The kid's he's basically the drummer boy, isn't he? And he's a barbarian. According to this, complicated, these barbarian rhythms. It's not always easy bringing up a little goth as a Roman. Again, this is less a reference to things the Romans would have done and more a reference to more recent fascist states and their behaviours. And she's not from the village. And now she's trying to talk the pirates into helping her. But they're all arguing over what they're going to do with her. No one's asking her opinion. And the tracker has tracked her to the boat. Nosferatus, the horse. Apparently he's a horse whisperer and he can speak to his horse. And she wants to leave. And we finally see her crack. And it's a case of she just wants out. And this one joke here from one of the pirates, she reminds me of my own. I've got one just like her in Massilla, Carthage, Alexandria. You know what they say about sailors, a girl in every port, and apparently a daughter too. And up she goes up the mast. And here, it should be ashamed of yourself, leaving children in every port. They want to make a Gaulish exit, everyone to the post, raise the sails, and off they go. They're looking for her as well on the beach, Asterix and Obelix. Literally, this is supposed to be the exciting part of the book. I think it usually is at this point. And I'm bored. There's not much of a plot going on here. Dogmatix, who's not spent any time with this girl, is crying over her. The pirates think they've escaped. Asterix and Obelix going back for a boat back to the village. Obelix stops to knock about some Romans who are just minding their own businesses. Pointless but stress busting. Again, this just makes Obelix out to be a bit of a bully. Normally there's some kind of provocation, and again, it's, as you put it earlier, Ring, it is the Asterix formula, but it's not applied in the same way. Nice little in-joke here of the Phoenix. The boat, it's just been fixed. It's a pleasure boat that Geriatrix has been saving for his retirement. Well, if he's not retired yet, when is he going to be? And we've got this again in 2019. Is this appropriate, really, to be showing the kids treated like this, and no one calling it out? Not even Asterix. Well, Vital Statistics steps in and says, well, they made the mess, they'll clear it. Any sort of excuse to get away from their fathers, and at this point I don't blame them. I feel like this book is just making a lot of the characters who we liked previously really unsympathetic. And here we go. Meanwhile, the two guys who dropped her off on a boat, that hippie boat, I don't know, like it's quite clearly going for the hippie aesthetic, and they're planning on taking her to London, and from there the RAF and the Allied Britons will launch their major offensive against the Roman occupation. Cough, D-Day, cough. Um, and we've got a little bit of a John Lennon reference going on here. Is it John Lennon? I don't know. My brain stopped working. This book's put my brain to sleep. Someone tell me if it's John Lennon. Ring, you're good with music. Is it John Lennon?
Sorry, my internet. I step away for 2 seconds, and my internet decides to crash, and I've been trying to get it back in for a couple of minutes. So
sorry
yes,
about
by the
that.
way, I know it's this. Yes, that was a John Lennon. I think that was Imagine.
It's Imagine, isn't it? I just couldn't remember whether it was John Lennon or whether it was the other one who'd sung it. I just did this book's just. I'm sorry. We do try and make these streams interesting, but we can only do so much.
We got something. We've to be honest, we have not got a lot to work with here.
There's not a lot to work with.
We've not got a lot to work with.
And I just you keep reading for a bit, Scummer, then.
Okay, whereabouts are we then? So we've got
John Lennon here, who in any other book it'd be a good joke, but in this one it barely keeps you awake.
Now you got these guys, monolithics and P6. He's getting ideas. You could demoralize some men or demobilize us. You're right. Let's change that. Good men, strong as So. And they've got the discreet as a mole thing. Oh god! Now I'm doing it with a J.
Yeah, it's quite clearly a war cry of some sort, isn't it?
Yeah. I love the fact that I do like the whole in trying to tell Dogmatics the Seeker. Where's he? What the hell's he gonna do? What is Dogmatics gonna do here?
Yeah, that does seem like Obelix logic, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. So. The kids saying the I think the effects of the potion are wearing off, and maybe we could have another lot. And he says, "I don't know if it's allowed." And Obelix, yes, but no, but yes, but that's a Little Britain reference.
Yeah, it is. It's Catherine Tate. Yeah, but no, but yeah, but no, but
that's actually Matt Lucas.
No, it's Matt Lucas, isn't it? Yeah.
Catherine Tate's Emma Bothered.
Yeah,
which is far more accurate to a sort of like moody teenage daughter thing, because I think Catherine Tate did that to like mock kind of like throw it back at her own teenage daughter when she got a strop kind of thing to start with. But I think that I mean that now Little Britain in a certain way is a good thing for these books to reference, because
Little Britain is also outdated, racist, sexist, and bigoted in almost every way possible.
And did the same goddamn jokes every single episode for 3 or 4 seasons straight.
Yeah. Just to put it into perspective, folks, we're talking about Little Britain, a TV show that made a 3 or 4 series running gag of a guy in a wheelchair being a bit thick. And faking being disabled so he didn't have to walk anywhere.
Yeah.
We're not talking about any kind of highbrow comedy here.
Hi
Jen.
It was hi Jen. Yeah, Little Britain. Sexist, racist. Because we had I forget which series it was, where we had the quote, the trope of the she's an Asian mail order bride trope joke that went on for a season or 2.
The grown man still breastfeeding joke was another one. It was one step up from fat jokes.
There's the one that I really hated was the old woman who just pissed everywhere joke. That wasn't even funny the first time I saw it.
It wasn't funny. It wasn't. It was very lowbrow.
I mean, the performers who did them, very talented guys, but it was not good. It
wasn't good comedy at all.
I will actually say, if you go back down here a little bit, there is the Catherine Tate reference. What if Emma Bothered?
Yeah, no, there is, and I'm sure we'll get there. But the whole thing about Little Britain was really sad is that the comedy of it, or what passed for its level of comedy, it
Yeah,
was taking the piss out of the people that actually watched it,
yeah.
and who liked that level of comedy, and it just,
It's
yeah, it
it's.
was,
I suppose
yeah,
it's like the till death us do part kind of thing. That it was actually ridiculed. It actually was supposed to be. It was actually supposed to be mocking bigotry and stupid. Or Al Murray's pub landlord character, which
yeah.
is
At least Al Murray's pub landlord character occasionally said something vaguely satirical.
yeah.
And that's about all I can put towards that.
Yeah, but it's the whole point of it's what what's I think Stuart Lee had a bit of a good analogy of this apparently this is the comedians holding a mirror up to society's prejudices by enacting those prejudices for money.
Yeah, basically. Um, just not amusing in the slightest. I'll tell you how bored I am. I've got a handful of mini marshmallows on my desk, and I'm arranging them like a checkerboard on my desk.
Yeah.
This is how bored I am right now of this book.
See, I think it was. I think it was a more interesting stream when we got fucking angry last time, and it kind of got. Even we even got a little ratty with one another for a minute as well because we were just so
we did
pissed off with the fucking book. But at least that made for more interesting than this. This has got.
We're trying for you folks, but there's only so much we can do.
I will say there, we do get a little callback though to Asterix the Gladiator here.
Yeah, we
Economic
do.
crisis. You remember the whole? I mean, it was a great character I thought in that book. The whole one with the oh no, they're not my galley slaves. They're my partner. They're partners. Yeah, that guy. And then he turned up in another book, didn't he? Where he was like, "Oh no, I'm selling package tour holiday." It's effectively it was all these little ways of scamming people into becoming his like rowing his galley for him.
Yeah, which But anyway, moving on.
But they don't even do much with that.
No, they don't do this. It's just a case of a scene in Asterix the Gladiator.
Yeah.
And they took the whole cargo of wine and headed straight for the Gaulish market. It's bad for business for a sailor to lose his amphora. Oh, shit. So...
Obelix is
what are the goals like? A consumer society. They consume and then they throw away. And plus look at their overconsumption of bar. So basically these kids, what these kids are quite... We've all seen it. We've all known a teenager who gets the first the first taste of politics and thinks they know everything. And that's clearly what these kids are being presented as. But if you don't encourage kids to carry on learning after they learn the first buzzwords, you're going to raise a generation of politically inept. So don't take the mickey out of them. Yes, roll your eyes at them in private if you need to. Trust me, I do. But encourage them too, because they're still learning.
Yeah.
And we all had to learn at some point, and we all probably said and did embarrassing things that came across like we were champagne socialists too. So, just... This just feels like it's trying to actually reach out to kids and is taking the mickey out of them, like it's trying to appeal to two generations at once and failing both.
It's reaching out to them. It's coming. I think this is coming. So this is supposed to be reaching out to like young teenagers or whatever. It's actually just comes across as very patronising.
Yeah, like I said, it's a weirdo vicar, isn't it?
So we're back on the pirate ship, and we've got our.
She's up in the crow's nest,
and she's taking my position. It's a very
She said
there's little puns here.
Yeah. And they think that he's after the alcohol, and she's basically single-handedly saves them from him. A bit going on
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
This is new. This whole the light around Asterix as he drinks the potion. That was not necessary in previous books. It's quite clearly been ripped off from the film.
Yes, I'm going to say that was a trope from the animated movies.
Yeah.
That they've obviously decided to
adopt
into.
Yeah. The kids again being patronised, stay there and look after Dogmatics.
Have we gone past the page or something? I don't know if we have or not. Oops, let's just see.
No, she.
Oh yeah, because there's the wing that the traitor has got to manage to get onto the pirate ship.
Yeah.
So
they're going in to rescue her. Where's the girl? Which girl? Girl, you know. Again, they're happy to hand her over. They looked after her. She's become a mascot. Who's that? A freelancer, the sort who discredits a whole profession. That's the traitor. She's recognised him.
Yeah.
This is the high priestess at the temple of Apollo. What is she? The most wanted kid in a Yes, you are. Deal with it. But telling her it was naughty when look at how old she is.
But I love the fact that she's usurped old Pegleg on the ship here. I've decided me and my crew are going to take her through, and they seem quite happy.
Yeah, they seem happy enough. And you know,
I mean, to be fair, under his leadership, how many times have they got beaten up by Asterix and Obelix?
Yeah.
So you could probably imagine that they wouldn't mind a change of leadership right now.
Yeah, exactly. So, and this is, it is what it is. And then we have the Romans appearing in a boat that looks straight like it's been yanked out of the Phoenician War. Again, not a bad bit of art. I'm not awake enough to criticize it properly.
But it also's got a slight hint of the sequel to 300 about
the less said about that, the better.
Yeah, the very very awful telling of the Battle of Salamis. Yeah.
You know they were going to make a 303. I heard. No,
the third one.
3. Apparently, there was going to be a third film in the franchise about the love story between Alexander the Great and his cupbearer.
Okay.
And it got nixed, which after the second one, I'm not surprised, but that would have actually been a good story to tell. But not by the person who was writing those stories, please.
There was there was a lot of outrage in like Macedonia over was it not Alexander film with Colin Farrell? Which wasn't a great movie, but in terms of historical accuracy, it was a lot better than most.
Yeah, but people don't like historical accuracy when there's. I don't want to blame an entire country and call an entire country homophobic, but
they let's be honest, they did not. Macedonians didn't take kindly to the insinuation that Alexander was gay or at least bisexual, which kind of historically he was.
Historically, those labels meant nothing.
Yeah.
Having sex with whoever was willing to have sex with you or otherwise in Alexander the Great's time was kind of the default. You were expected to eventually marry and have a kid because continue the bloodline, but who you screwed in the meantime was kind of irrelevant. It was more relevant of the fact that whether you were the one doing the screwing or not. It was definitely a penetration reception model as opposed to a sex-based partner model that we have. There's entire academic articles on it. I'm not going to go into it. Suffice to say, the ancient Greeks, the Macedonians, pretty much everyone before the church started saying you can't do that.
Yeah.
Destroying everyone else. Just take it as given.
Yeah.
And they didn't care. And that there was no homophobia because there was no homosexuality. It was kind of just
it is what it was, what it is, what it is, kind of thing.
Yeah, Caesar is a man's man and a woman's man too, you know. Traditionally, Roman men of a certain class would have had a tutor, which was something that was borrowed from a Greek tradition of, you know, older men teaching younger boys the facts of life and taking their dues, taking their pound of flesh as payment.
So
it's gross, but it's also historically something that happened, and there's no point in denying it. It's gross to our sensibilities. It made sense to them because that's how their society worked.
Yep.
So yeah. Anyway, we went well on track there.
Yeah.
And again with the Roman salute, folks.
Yeah.
It's not what you think. It's really not what you think. Even with the Germanic language around it.
Yeah.
Vercingetorix daughters. So basically, they've got this here. So the situation is complicated. Keep the Romans out of it.
Now, I did like the little thing that the pirate says here. It's if someone sinks us, it's going to be the Gauls and the Gauls alone. Like, you know, I kind of like that one. It's almost
as if to say, it's only I have the right to do this now. They've earned that right. There's an understanding there.
Yeah, it's kind of so.
I have no idea if this gangway is historically accurate or not. I don't really care.
I don't know. I mean, we know that the Romans obviously did use sort of gangway type of something similar to this.
There was a tactic in the Phoenician War where essentially they would ram ships into each other. When they're rammed and they're locked together, you throw a gangway over, soldiers go on, and it becomes basically a land battle on the boat.
I think I think it was
something. The Romans didn't have much by way of a naval, military plan. They weren't a naval power. They were a land-based power.
I always heard that it was a tactic adopted for the first Punic War with Carthage, because Carthage
Punic War, not Phoenician War. It's me. It's my dyslexia is playing up today. Ignore me.
Well, you know, you're not 100% wrong there, are you? Really? But,
no, I'm not 100% wrong, but I should know the words by now. I am a classicist.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is it. I'm so tired. I can't even control what words are coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Might need to take a nap before medium
so
music.
We're gonna we'll have to get a move on then. So we got the Asterix and Obelix start the usual beat the crap out of the Romans.
So again, simple device, land-based combat that Romans excel at.
Except when they come up against Asterix and Obelix, where they do not excel at land-based combat.
She wants grappling hooks, and off she goes to find them for herself.
And the traitor seems to have escaped.
Yeah, the traders escaped. The soldiers are quite happy with their lot to have finally seen some action. The teenagers think the adults are having too much fun because they've been told to sit and wait, which, of course. It's no excuses, really. Men are out of the depth. Again, these puns are so, but like, Ring, are these puns even bad enough for you to use them? This, yes. the typical Asterix level puns, but just I'm so bored at this point I can't find them funny. The Romans trying to give Asterix a level in strategy as he beats him. Like, what even? This one. It is just a bit snarky, isn't it?
Yeah.
The kids obviously rebelling. Like, this is kind of sad because this guy clearly tried to raise his kid the best way he could, but has also quite clearly raised this kid to know where he came from, which, that's a whole other bag of worms. And it's just, I don't feel like this subplot belongs in a children's story. It's too complex for that. It's an emotional punching bag that really you shouldn't. If you're not going to do it properly, don't skim it.
So, we get to the next page. The traitor's taken adrenaline up to the crow's nest there onto the viewing platform.
He's got it
tied up. Decides he's going to shoot an arrow at Asterix, who just catches it and flicks it back at him.
Yep, and it goes straight through the mast.
And we're getting this recurring joke with the pirate Bubba, no, they're doing away with my position.
Yeah.
You can see our reactions to the jokes of these. It's just meh.
Yeah. All in the boat. The teenagers find her, get her into the boat, and she's, he took the talk.
Yep. And the talk goes
fights him, and it goes in the water.
Yeah. And he's I never forget a place. So I'll be back for the talk. Nothing can stop me. Meanwhile, you see this fin appear from the little Jaws reference here.
Yeah, so quite obviously something is going to stop him because I don't think we ever see him again. No. Mission accomplished. And
let's go home.
The pirates, you're all sad to see her go because they kind of wanted to go with her.
But the captain's kind of happy he's got his crew back anyway, so.
Yep. And then down they go, as usual.
As usual. Because it's the pirates, they have to go
under, don't they? And then after a smooth crossing, they're home.
Yeah.
The RAF boys are there and they're not happy.
Yeah. And I like the fact she finally Tiny sort of says, "What about you? Where were you while I was being kidnapped by that tracker?" She finally's had enough, and basically like,
and the talk, and that's all they care about. And she's right. Yeah. So, and she's basically saying, "You want to reconquer the country? Do it your damn self."
Yeah. Deal with it.
Yeah. I get the feeling she doesn't like a fight. No, she just doesn't want to fight for people who don't care about it. There's a difference.
Yeah. So she's heads to the pontoon and
jumps on a ship with peaceniks.
Yeah. So you got the whole young love thing, the two teenage lovers going off together. Which
and they've now started to realise she's never going to wage the war. And they're kind of playing the blame game. And they don't have the talk. So they've got the general's ceremonial helmet. Which they're now going to use as a symbol instead.
Yeah. which is, really putting the thing on, really
The whole
really
point is the story was a muggle. Yeah.
symbols, really,
Yeah.
So I love that. I do like this. I did like this little one bit further down the page. We got the unhygienics and fully automatics again.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that kids are sort of saying about our training and whatever. And he said, "Mate, this might," and they like to think, the two kids are saying, "I wouldn't mind having a go at being a blacksmith. I wouldn't mind having a go at being a fishmonger." He says, "It'd be great because all we have to do is cross the street." It's like the two kids have got more sense than the bloody adults in this.
Yeah, than all the adults.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see, the kids stepping up and just being themselves, which I think is the main theme of this, isn't it? Letting kids just do their own thing.
So, meanwhile,
so now we hear that because Caesar had adopted Brutus, and so Caesar's basically saying he was planning on adopting her, which, can you imagine what that would have done to the politics?
Yeah, that could be a whole stream in itself.
I mean, she's a girl, so realistically, it wouldn't have done much. But oh wow, wow!
And Brutus casually playing with a knife.
Yeah, again, more jokes there. He's not much of a one for family. He says as he eyes the knife.
Kind of once again here with their own sort of canon, they've kind of screwing up once again because.
That's what I was getting at, Ring. You have standards for your puns, and even these ones aren't even. Yeah.
Because if you remember, there was a book we covered a couple of months ago where Brutus was a character, and Caesar was, should we say, less than affectionate with him because he was plotting,
Yeah, so it doesn't really follow its own thing. I get it. These books are all supposed to sort of be around the same time, so I can handle with that. It's the same joke they've been doing for 37 books.
Yeah.
And they're not even doing it well this time. So, So she's saying now the village is heirs to her father. And she's grateful to the guys for raising her and looking after her. And this is quite sweet, and this is an emotional little moment in this book that kind of makes it worthwhile in this sense of she's following their example of she wants to look after orphans and kids and help them, which is what these two guys essentially did for her. Now they had selfish reasons, but you can also quite see that they do have an emotional attachment to her, and they have from the beginning, even if they don't quite understand her. And they're happy for her that she's figured out what she wants to do.
Yeah.
And it's quite sweet. It's a cute little adoption story. And it's nice to see the adults in her life learn that they don't own her and can't control her. It does sort of make this story worthwhile insofar as it tugs on the heartstrings a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, and Obelix, of course. So we're not following her anymore. No, we're not following
her anymore.
Yeah.
And off she goes. History has not preserved the name of Vercingetorix's daughter. It said that her ship never reached Thule, but was driven by the winds to more distant islands.
So you're guessing this is
somewhere in the Caribbean.
Yeah, you're guessing.
Jamaica, Barbados, somewhere like that. Again, the children are not drawn particularly pleasantly.
No.
I came over all British describing that, I think. they could be worse, but they could be a lot better. My best guess is it's going to be, given that she's a French ship landing in the Caribbean, my best guess is it's going to be Haiti, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they seem to have adopted the children on the island. And you see this here of, I can see what they're getting at with this. They're getting at the fact that she doesn't really care what race, creed, or anything else these kids are. But given the way these kids are drawn, and quite clearly the one on the end is the one, because spitting image of Peacenik's there.
Yeah.
And these two are adopted. It's a bit Madonna.
Yeah.
I think that it might actually be. Didn't Madonna adopt one Asian kid and one African kid or something?
And I do like this little thing though, because Get Effects, of course, being the one who was talking sense in this book to begin with, like, she didn't Adrenaline betray the memory of Vercingetorix? Said no, not really. He says her father told her to resist conquest and to be free, and that's what she's done, and she's done it in her own way. Yeah, thank you, Get Effects.
Thank you. Point made. And she's resisted the conquest of the people trying to force her into a role she doesn't want to live in.
Yeah.
You know. And because of all that, well, that ends well, lots of bar, and every member of the RAF invited to share in the banquet. The kids playing. I like this, that the kids are playing and tying up cacophonics, and he's kind of
going along quite happy.
He's going along with them at this point, isn't he? Because he's not gagged or anything. Yeah. Everyone's eating, and he's quite happy watching the kids. Dogmatics has found a mole in the ground. And they're all just having a bit of fun. It's typical. It's a bit weirdly drawn with all the purples at sunset rather than right at night. And again, this line here, deep down, all that really mattered was the children's happiness. And wow, it took you an entire book to figure that out. And there we go, right in the bottom of the sea where no one's going to find it. The thing that the real MacGuffin.
Yeah.
So, and that's the end of the book.
There we are. Yeah,
that's
and
yeah,
that is the last book that was ever published. There is one due to be published later this year, I believe. But
yeah, we'll see how that goes. I guess I probably was thinking of Angelina Jolie ring with the adopted kids.
I was thinking of Madonna because I remember that story quite well.
Yeah, there was a thing about Madonna adopting, wasn't there?
Yeah. Back 20
I mean, they all did it. It was fashionable for a while, wasn't it? Madonna did it, Elton John did it, Angelina Jolie did it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great for the kids you've adopted, but let's be honest. If you wanted to do it, you did it as much for the PR as anything else.
It's not a bloody fat. It's not an adopted kid's not a fashion accessory. Let's be clear.
These kids aren't a fashion statement. These kids aren't, there for you to score points, which is, as Jen's put it there, it was a status symbol.
Yeah.
You think 30 years earlier than that, they'd have probably bought a racehorse instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the last book. Like I said, boring. Meh.
Yeah.
The thing is, there's nothing in there that's made me angry, which is a nice change.
It's just been an improvement over the last two books. Let's be clear. It's
a vast improvement. I would rather sit and read 10 Met Asterix books than another one like any of the previous ones. But they still haven't hit their stride, I don't think. And if they don't hit it soon, they're going to find... I feel like these books are only still being produced because of the nostalgia effect. And that comes across in this one because he's trying to appeal to a younger audience and is simultaneously taking the piss out of that younger audience. Because it's trying to appeal to its old audience as well. No. You know your audience and stick to it. It's the first rule of creation. know your audience, and they quite clearly don't, and that's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, so I suppose next week we'll probably do a final banquet to wrap the series up, or at least for the time being. And
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll have to see. Well, I think we'll wait and see what the next book's like before we decide whether we're going to cover it any further or not. I think, but
Yeah.
we definitely. I think we do need I think we are probably both of the opinion we do need a break from it at least.
Yeah, I think as wonderful as it's been doing this with you, Jeff, and as great as you've been, I wish I'd have known what I was getting into when we started. I might have thought twice.
To be honest, especially with the to be honest, a lot of the last sort of 10 or so we've done, you see, these are ones I hadn't read before as well. So I didn't kind of know what we were. I was hoping they might have changed a little bit by now to, shall we say,
yeah, I'm just dreading the next one, because if we think there's one due out at middle to the end of this year, that means it was being written last year. And these books, particularly given the track record of these books on race, I am not. I have concerns. And I think perfectly valid, founded concerns at this point.
Yeah. I've definitely got my reservations about. I suppose when Jean-Yves Ferret and Didier Conrad came in, I was hoping for a little bit of a change, and that a fact they seem to have gone. I think with some of the books, I almost feel like they've gone worse with certain things, and But I think we'll probably have to.
Yeah, I feel like they almost doubled down because they were trying to reach into the history of Asterix and went too far.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, I think. So I think what we'll probably do, we'll wrap the series up next week with a bit more of an open thing, so we can end this on a more positive note. Because the last 2 weeks we've had 2 weeks of angry, and then we've had this week of a anticlimax. I think really. So
I reckon next week, banquet on your channel.
Yeah.
And we'll open it up a bit. We know who our regulars are, and see if we can get them to join us and have a chat about just the last year, best episodes, worst episodes, things they've enjoyed, things they haven't, and we'll just have a nice little wrap up and take it from there.
I think that's the way to go. I think that's absolutely the way to go. We'll so we can at least end this on a high note, because we've been doing this a year now. We're trying to wrap this up on a positive.
Yeah. That's just me. So before we finish and head on over for Media Musings, anything to shield, Scummer?
Well, only next week, to be honest, and we've just chilled.
Just done that. Cool. So I'm sure Ring will be hurriedly grabbing the link to Media Musings in and dropping it in the chat for us. Hint, hint, spousey. Join us over there in about 10 minutes' time. We are doing Guardians of the Galaxy this week.
Yes, we are. This is one of my sorry, I'm looking forward to. This is my pick.
Yeah, I rewatched this one, and it's going to be nice to just have something that's amusing. If nothing else, I can giggle about the music that was in it.
One of my favourite parts. Anyway, we'll get into all that in about 10-15 minutes or so.
10-15 minutes or so. I'm going to go grab an espresso and wake myself up for that, I think.
I'm probably going to grab alcohol. So.
Yep, I may do a Death Stranding stream tomorrow, depending on how I'm feeling, because if I'm still this tired and bored from Asterix, probably not. Also, I have other things going on. But do join us for Media Musings in 10-15 minutes. And we will see you next week on Scummer's channel. Tagline, Scummer?
I'm not doing taglines, but just because it's on the screen there and we're about to do Guardians, I am Groot.
You are Groot. And as always from me, take care, be good. And if you can't be good, Be careful.